Good morning and welcome to Worldwide Wisdom. Today we're celebrating the beautiful festival of Hanukkah, and I'd like to bring to your attention a surprising paradox in the story of Hanukkah. Can you find Tractate Shabbos over here? Tractate Shabbos Volume 1. Oh, I see Shabbos 3 over there, Shabbos 4. Do you see Tractate Shabbos there anywhere? If you don't mind. Thanks. Shabbos was 1 star. Thanks. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. So, there's an interesting paradox when it comes to the Hanukkah story, and that is like this. We all know the Hanukkah story for the most part, right? The Greeks, they invaded the Promised Land. They found a coin, by the way, of the menorah the other day. It's 2,300 years old, this coin, right? 2,300 years old. And it's interesting that the menorah has the same shape as the way the Maimonides does the menorah. Not the rounded arms, but the straight arms, like Maimonides is menorah, the way the Rebbe teaches the menorah. The Rebbe says that the rounded menorah was a bastardization of the menorah by the Romans, but the real menorah was actually straight, and this coin shows the straight, right? But it comes to show us it's not there. Can you look over here, maybe? Down this way.
Is that why you incorporate?
Absolutely, that's why our logo absolutely is the menorah this shape. Or it's very rare to see a menorah in Chabad with rounded, and you also never see the rounded tablets in Chabad because the Rebbe maintained it was square. Exactly, it was square. All right, that's the problem. Exactly right. So now I just want to point out to you that we were living in the land of Israel long before Muhammad was ever even born. Long before Islam was ever even conceived of, invented. We already had a presence in the Promised Land. The Greeks invaded our Promised Land. I'll pull it up online if you can't find it. Don't work too hard. It might be in the library or something. David, you mind checking the library if there's Tractate Shabbos, the brown? Well, Muhammad's only 1,500 years old. He's a relative kid compared to the Jewish people. And this story would have been 800 years. This coin was 800 years prior. Yeah, he couldn't even sign his name. In any event, what the paradox that I'd like to bring to your attention is that the Hanukkah story talks about it. The Greeks invaded our Promised Land. They tried to overwhelm us, and we managed to fight them off and succeeded in reestablishing our temple, which is why it's called Hanukkah. Thank you so much. Oh, amazing. We rededicated our temple, right? It's time Hanukkah is a time of building our shul. Hanukkah is a time of rebuilding, of rededicating the temple, right? So let's take a look at how the stories commemorates it in the Talmud. Thank you, folks, for finding this. It's on Shabbos 21b, I think it is. 21b. Yeah, here, let's see. So the Gemara asks a fascinating question, and this really sets the stage for the entire Hanukkah story. Here. Okay, here it is. Okay, the Gemara is going to ask now a question about what is Hanukkah. Here, I'm sorry. Okay, I was on the wrong page. I'm sorry. I'm just pulling it up. But the Gemara is going to ask a very famous question. What is Hanukkah? Here. The Gemara reveals the origin of the holiday of Hanukkah. 21b on Shabbos tractate. What is the reason for the rabbinic Yom Tiv of Hanukkah? On account of which miracle did the rabbis establish it? The Tanur Rabbanan, it is as the rabbis taught in a Brisa, found in Megillas Tainus on the 25th day of Kislev. The days of Hanukkah commence. They are 8 days in all, on which it is not permitted to eulogize or fast. For when the Syrian Greeks entered the sanctuary, they contaminated all the flasks of oil that were in the sanctuary. And when the royal Hasmonean house gained the upper hand and vanquished them, the Hasmoneans searched the Heichal, the temple, and found only 1 flask of oil that was lying out of sight, with the Kohen Gadol seal still intact. And it contained only enough oil to kindle the menorah for 1 day. However, a miracle was performed with this oil, and they kindled the lights of the menorah with it for 8 days, until other ritual oil could be obtained. Incidentally, it took a 4 days journey to reach there in the place of Tekoa in the tribe of Asher. Asher was blessed with an abundance of oil. Hence, oil from the single flask, there's a 4-day trip each way, right? They didn't have FedEx same-day air, right? Then Hanukkah would have been a whole different story. If you'd have Amazon Prime now, you wouldn't have to worry about Hanukkah for 8 days. But it was a 4-day journey. What are you going to do, right? So the oil from the single flask needed to burn miraculously until the round trip could be completed. Alternatively, another explanation is because they were all impure, and they needed 7 days to be purified before they could crush the oil in a state of purity. That's why it needed to be 8 days. Anyways, the Gemara continues, recognizing that the miracle had eternal implications. In the following year, very important to hear that. In the following year, Lashana Acheres, the Hasmoneans and the Sanhedrin established and rendered these 8 days permanent festival days with respect to the reciting of Hallel and Thanksgiving. What was the miracle of Hanukkah we just read about in the Gemara? What?
The miracle of the oil.
The miracle of the oil. What was the glaring omission?
Military
victory. There was not a mention of the it was like an entire tangent that said when the Syrian Greeks entered the sanctuary, they contaminated all the flasks of oil that were in the sanctuary, and when the royal Hasmonean house gained the upper hand and vanquished them, the Hasmonean searched, they found the oil, it burned for 8 days. It was like a side note, like okay, by the way, when they finally got back in, this is what they did, right? Now let's compare that with the reading of the Hanukkah, which we read in the Amida, during the silent Amida, and during the grace after meals. In the days of Matisyahu, the son of Yochanan the high priest, Hasmonean and his sons, when the wicked Hellenic government rose up against your people Israel to make them forget your Torah and violate the decrees of your will, but you and your abounding mercy stood by them in the time of their distress. You waged the battles, defended their rights, avenged the wrong done to them. You delivered the mighty into the hands of the weak, the many into the hands of the few, the impure into the hands of the pure, the wicked into the hands of the righteous, and the wanton sinners into the hands of those who occupy themselves with your Torah. You made a great and holy name for yourself in your world and effected a great deliverance and redemption for your people Israel to this very day. We didn't really mention the miracle yet, right? I don't think we did, right? Then your children entered the shrine of the house, cleansed your temple, purified your sanctuary, kindled lights in your holy courtyards, and instituted these 8 days of Hanukkah to give thanks and praise to your great name. What was the miracle here? It doesn't really say.
No.
But what it did say, and I want to bring to your attention what it did say, is that they kindled lights in your holy courtyards.
How could they do that?
Which courtyards are we talking about? Which?
In the Holy Temple.
Kindled lights in the holy courtyards. How many courtyards in the temple?
One.
There's only one courtyard in the holy temple, the Azara, right? The Chatzar Azara. There's only one courtyard in the holy temple. So what's it talking about when it says that they lit candles? Besides, where was the menorah lit? It was indoors. Exactly. The menorah was lit indoors. There's the Holy of Holies where the Ark of the Covenant was. And the Holy was just before the Holy of Holies. That's so they had 3 things: the golden altar for the incense, they had the menorah, and they had the table of showbread. So why are they lighting the menorah out in the courtyards? Plural, right? What's that referring to? What? Good question, right? So here's what happens. The Rebbe identifies this discrepancy of the courtyards. And the Rebbe says, therefore, that we have to conclude that when we're referring in the reading of the Alanistim prayer, when we're referring to the lighting of the candelabras in the holy courtyards, we're referring not to the menorah, the golden menorah in the holy temple. We're referring to other candles. We're referring to the candelabras that the Chashmonaim lit in order to praise God for the great miracle. These menorahs they lit outdoors in order to publicize exactly the miracle, just like the menorah was lit during Sukkot. During Sukkot, the Simchas Beis HaSha'iva is the time of the great joy celebrations. On Sukkot, we dance non-stop, like in Crown Heights that have instituted the dancing 7 days straight, right? So in the Holy Temple, they would dance Simchas Beis HaSha'iva, and they would illuminate the courtyard with giant menorah candelabras as a festivity, as a celebratory move.
There's only one courtyard.
Right, but they would light it with multiple menorah candelabras. So just like there, so to these candelabras, it's not the same menorah that was lit in the Holy Temple indoors. This was a publicity form of menorah, right? So it turns out that... So it turns out, let's go back here to the Alanissim. It says, so there was no reference to the miracle of the oil. That was the glaring omission in the Alanissim prayer. But it did mention the miracle of the banishment of the Greeks. Yeah. That's what it talks about. It says, then your people, you delivered the few into the mighty.
That's more the military.
It speaks about the military, exactly. It's talking about the war. That's what it's referencing. It's not talking about 8 days of oil burning. It talks about the war, right? And then finally they came back in and they were able to rededicate the temple, and that's why it's called Hanukkah, because it means rededication. So there's a paradox here. When it comes to the Talmud, it talks about the miracle of the 8 days, no mention of the war. When it comes to here, it does not mention the 8 days of burning. It only mentions the driving out of the occupying forces, right? The Syrian Greeks, Seleucids, right? That was the brand of the Greeks.
That was the East Empire that Alexander the Great established.
Great.
all over
Okay.
the-
So now that we've got that context, we are left with the question: why is it that in one place we mention one miracle, and the other place we mention the other miracle? We can't put them together. Can we get the story stitched together in one editorial? Right? Make up your minds. Which miracle is it? The Rebbe points out that, of course, the essential miracle of Hanukkah is, in fact, the miracle of the candles. Because, as we mentioned previously, the war of Hanukkah was not a military war as much as it was a spiritual war. They were trying to assimilate us more than they were trying to kill us. The fact that they were killing us was only because we weren't complying with their cultural impositions. Right? It was only because we weren't towing their line like they were, like other nations that they occupied. So they were forcing us into submission, but they weren't actually trying to kill us. So the essential miracle was the miracle of Jewish faith, integrity, values, and loyalty, which is represented by the menorah. Right? So much so, remember that the Greeks actually forced the Jewish people. It says in the Gemara Chagiga, the Greeks forced the Jewish people to engrave upon the horns of the oxen today's proverbial bumper sticker. Ein li chelek be'elokei Yisrael. I have no portion in the God of Israel. This is what they made them. Imagine there was a law that you had to write. Imagine some anti-Semite runs for president of the United States and he says, you have to have a bumper sticker. Every Jew has to have a bumper sticker in his car that says, I reject Israel. Right? Imagine. Like, that would be a huge statement. This is what they did. They said, I reject the God of Israel. I have no portion in the God of Israel. This is what the war was about. And that's why the miracle of the oil representing God's presence amongst the Jewish people, like the burning bush, by the way. Like the burning bush, and it was burning, but it wasn't consuming, right? The oil represented the presence of God. Whereas the military victory was a means to the greater ends. It was the necessary cause to the ultimate effect, because we wouldn't be able to maintain Judaism in Israel if we were under the occupying forces of the Syrian Greek Seleucid Empire, right? And that's why the Rebbe says that there's actually two separate miracles here at play. Two separate miracles at play. And you cannot mix them because one will overshadow the other. There was the miracle of the oil, which represents the spiritual liberation. And there was the miracle of the war, which, by the way, was an amazing miracle. We just read in Megillas Antiochus that the small, tiny ragtag group of guerrilla fighters of the Maccabees, Matisyahu and his 5 sons and whatever helpers they had, were able to overwhelm the mighty Greek force. It's almost unthinkable. I mean, you can understand why people would want to make a big deal out of the military victory. You can understand why Jews feel slighted, like the rabbis have hijacked Hanukkah by underplaying the military victory and overplaying the seemingly irrelevant burning of the oil for 8 days. I mean, who cares, really? And how many people actually saw the oil burning for 8 days? Just think about that for a second. Burning inside the temple. The Kohanim would have seen it, the priests, but it wasn't exactly accessible to every single Jew. So, you can understand why some people would feel that they need to upplay the significance of the military victory. And that's why the Rebbe says these two miracles cannot be mentioned simultaneously. One has got to be in the Talmud, which talks about the 8 days of oil. One's got to be in the prayer, which we say 4 times daily, 3 times in our prayers, and 1 time in our benching, depending on how many times you eat. That there mentions only the military victory, because the miracle of the oil will be overshadowed by the military victory. People won't appreciate the essential in the face of the superficial, because we are a klippa generation. As human beings, Tanya chapter 1, we are originated in klippa and God's superficial energy, and we're drawn to superficiality. So when we have, when you give a child a Hanukkah present, have you ever noticed it's an amazing thing? You give a child a Hanukkah present, it's almost like you could give them an empty box. It doesn't really need to have anything in the box. They love playing with the box. The children, they love playing with the box. If it's colorful, yeah, they love the box, Right. So how often does it happen that we ignore the forest for the trees, right? We lose sight of the forest because of the trees. We judge a book by its cover because we're a clipper generation. So what happens is when you got a military victory, we don't even remember why we were fighting the war. We lost track. We just get so excited at the fact that there was a victory, that there was a military victory. We kind of forget what the war was about. I mean, think about it. How many of us actually think about the difference between the wars of the Greeks and the wars of the Babylonians and the Romans? I mean, it's almost like a detail that doesn't really matter so much. Yeah, I mean, the historians, the scholars, the academics, but like, a victory is a victory. It's like somebody said the other day. They try to kill us. We won. Let's eat. That's all that matters, right? That's all that matters. Who knows the details, Rabbi? This is way too complicated, way too involved, right? Way too nuanced and detailed. But that's why we have to have this paradox to mention two different miracles at two different times, so one doesn't eclipse over the other. And think about it: when you have the miracle of the oil burning for 8 days, what's the significance of a military fight in the presence of God Almighty's presence in this physical space? When you think about it, that God's infinite energy was manifest in this physical world, you're like, whoa. That, if you really are able to appreciate and understand that God revealed himself in this world, then what's the significance of a hand-to-hand combat? Big deal. So he had a Uzi machine gun and he had an F-16 fighter jet. Okay, so like, okay, here you're talking about hand-to-hand combat between two mortals. And the miracle of the oil is the presence of not two mortals, but the presence of an infinite immortal being. So it's like the war fades in relevance in the presence of that idea.
What's your definition of miracle?
A miracle means shattering the laws of nature, breaking the expectations.
All right, so the miracle of the oil, I get that as a miracle because it shatters the laws of nature. Why is that a military victory? Why is that a miracle? That doesn't shatter.
Because
So that's not it.
Rob, what would happen? Rob, let's talk about this. Rob,
Underdogs win all the time.
what would happen if Chabad Palm Beach Gardens decided to take on, if Chabad Palm Beach Gardens Security Committee decided to take on the United States Army? Okay, what would happen? Imagine we won. Would that be a miracle? Would you be like,
be a miracle?
I mean, like seriously. Imagine Arshul's security team here decided to take on the United States Armed Forces. I mean, come on. You know what I mean? Is that not a miracle?
Yeah, well, was the difference between the two forces really that great?
Yes.
I don't think so.
They were a bunch of Hasmoneans. These were Kohanim. They were Levites. They're rabbinical scholars.
The Israelis and the Czechoslovakians in
That's
48
like saying
against
the Patriots going against the
Look, I think you're bringing out a good point. Look,
in the American Revolution, going against the world's greatest
That was a miracle.
power.
That was a
Not a
miracle.
miracle. It's we were smart. We hid behind the trees. They walked in single file.
And they wore red coats.
Yeah.
Miracle they were
if the Greeks won, there would not be oil. What does that mean?
They would destroy the temple, and there were
They didn't want to destroy the temple. They didn't destroy. They could have destroyed the temple.
That's
They
a great
didn't.
example.
Contaminated.
The whole idea is if the Greeks won, Judaism would not be what it is today.
Oh, now I want to go there. I want to go there a second. Hang on. I want to go there a second. If the Greeks won, Judaism would not. What?
Not be here.
Let me ask you a question. Who won this war?
It's not over yet. That's what you said yesterday.
I think you're diminishing that God was not with the military. That was a miracle that I think is greater than the oil.
I want to pull up a song for you. A song which was composed by the early Zionists, the early secular Zionists. I'm not talking about the biblical Zionists. I'm talking about the early secular Zionists. Okay, it's a song which is still sung on Yom Ha'atzmaut in Israel when they light the torch, when they light the big torches for Yom Ha'atzmaut. Okay, here it goes. This song was written by Levin Kipnis in 1923. He was a pioneering Hebrew poet and educated in pre-state Israel. He wrote hundreds of children's songs and poems, which became foundational to early Israeli culture and education. Anachnu lapidim, we are torches, emerged during a period when secular Zionism was intentionally reshaping Jewish holidays to emphasize human strength, nationalism, and self-reliance,
Muscular Judaism.
often downplaying or removing overt references to God and divine miracles. Written just after World War I and during the earlier years of the establishment of the settlement of the modern state of Israel. The song reflects a conscious ideological shift. Hanukkah is a celebration of Jewish bravery and activism rather than divine intervention and spiritual resilience. Right? Okay, here goes. You ready for the words? Here goes. We are the torches. We are the light. And our flame is eternal. Through every darkness and every night, our light will always burn. Through generations past, through struggles we've known, we've carried the fire never alone. We are the torches, we are the flame, lighting the world in freedom's name. 1 second. Let's see the Hebrew. Let me just see what the Hebrew lyrics are. Oh, come on. I was looking up the words of the song here, but here. Anachnu nosim lapidim. Here it is. I think that wasn't the full song over there. We carry our torches in darkest depths of night, in paths beneath our feet are bright. Anyone who has a heart which for light is parched should lift up to his eyes and heart, join us towards the light. No miracle befell us. No miracle befell us. I know that lyric I pulled up in GPT was missing, copyrighted and stuff. No miracle befell us. Nes lo kara lanu. Pach shemen lo matzanu. No cruse of oil was found by us.
Wow.
We walked a vale, climbed mountains high, and there springs on earth of hidden lights of yore. No miracle befell us, no cruse of oil found by us. We quarried rock until we bled, and then there was light. Can you imagine what the song is saying? What's the song saying? The song is entirely rejecting the divine miracle. It's focusing entirely on a nationalistic conquest of the land of Israel from over the hands of the invaders, of the Greeks. That's it. That's what the entire song is. You know, for Jews today.
Wait. You're saying that that's their interpretation of the Hanukkah story?
Yeah.
It's their interpretation of their victory then over they say that they are going to reclaim this is a Zionist song, that they are going to reclaim the land of Israel without the benefit of a miracle.
So you're interpreting the song
what?
as what they're going to do now as opposed to what happened then.
Yes.
I don't interpret it that way. It was not
Zionist song.
Hang on. What do you mean Zionist song? Shkoyach, but it was a reference to historical Jewish nationalism. In other words, don't give me Baba my sis about an 8-day miracle. No miracle befell us. We worked with our own hands. It's past tense. No miracle befell us. It doesn't say no miracle will happen. It says no miracle befell us. No cruse of oil was found by us. So it's a reference to Hanukkah story. Look, you can interpret it how you want.
But it acknowledges the miracle.
No,
Does it?
Yes, it does.
It denies
It does not. It says no oil that felt.
Oh, okay.
So
Rob, so let me understand.
You're
Rob, I'm trying to understand what you're saying. So you're saying they had a miracle, but we didn't.
Exactly.
They found the oil, but we didn't.
Exactly.
Okay.
It
So
acknowledges the miracle, but they say we are doing it without
right.
miracle.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying.
Which falls into
I hear what you're
their
saying.
Secular belief
Okay.
of what they need.
Right.
For Israel, they say,
Right.
we can't rely on miracles. We have to do it with stone quarry through our own hand.
Okay.
Not past tense.
No,
No, the Zionists struggled in Campbell long before
this is 1920. This is 1920.
Exactly, and when did Zionists begin?
1880. Modern Zionism,
All right.
1880.
Exactly, there you go.
Many of them weren't religious.
Most of them.
Right,
They weren't
exactly.
religious.
No, they were not. They were not. But it was
Look,
secular.
I've always understood it that it was a conscious reinterpretation of the Hanukkah story. That's how I've always understood. I hear what you're saying. I do. I hear you respectfully. I don't interpret it that way, especially in light of other statements made by the early Zionists. I'll tell you an example. When the early Zionists said things like Ben Gurion said that the constitution of the nationalistic state of Israel will replace the code of Jewish law. Okay, Theodor Herzl refused to bris his own son. Okay, let's not rewrite history over here. These are facts, right?
What's the name of this song?
Anachnu nosim lapidim.
What's the name?
Oh, we carry torches.
We carry torches.
Yeah, we are carrying torches. Yeah, look it up. We are carrying torches, and it was written in 1923 by Levin Kipnis, 1923. Okay, early Zionists. Anyways, guys, let me just finish this point of your Rob. Rob, the point I'm trying to make is like this: is that many Jews today feel that the manifestation of perfect Judaism, the greatest symbolism of Judaism, is the Israeli flag. And what could be holier than Hatikvah? That's what they say. What could be holier than Hatikvah? Right? When in fact we have to recognize and realize that actually we might be missing the point entirely, because being Jewish is not just about having a national homeland. It's not just about being Israelis. It's about being Jews. And being Jews means to have the courage to be able to welcome and embrace God into our lives, and to have the humility to work with God and to fulfill God's wishes. That's what it means to be a Jew, right? What the Greeks wanted to do was to say, you can have your homeland, but don't make it holy. You can be nationalists, but don't be religious. Right?
Sounds like the early Zion.
Exactly. And now you mentioned the early Zionists. What about modern Jewry today? Let's think about that. So I think I mentioned this yesterday, that imagine you have a Hanukkah party and you're serving treif at the Hanukkah party. Because it feels so Jewish. It's Hanukkah, the menorah. We're doing Hebrew words.
Depends on what kind of trade.
What are you doing? You are succumbing to the Greeks. The Greeks would be so proud to attend such a party. They'd love it. You're attending a Hanukkah party. It's so cultural. It's ethnic. It's beautiful. And serve the treif. The treif is perfect, which means we're not holy. That's the whole point. We have not yet won the Hanukkah story. Every other war we've ever fought, we won. We beat the Assyrians. They've vanished. We beat the Egyptians. Well, Mike, we talk about this, right? The Egyptians. That's the book we're writing, right?
Yeah.
The Egyptians. There's a war against ego. Not so simple. They were still battling with that one. But then there's, we think about the Romans. Those that try to kill our bodies. When we overwhelm them, we overwhelm them. And I want to say this to you. Hamas is trying to kill our bodies. Hamas is trying to kill Jews.
Yeah, well, they're also trying to kill Judaism.
I think that I want to differentiate between the war in Israel and the war in the diaspora. In Israel, they're trying to kill Jews. But in the diaspora, they're attacking us on Manchester Yom Kippur. Poway, they attacked us on Yizkor of end of Pesach. Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh on a Shabbos morning, I think it was, right? They attacked us on Hanukkah in Bondi, right? It's our Jewish festivals that they're after.
Simchat Torah in Gaza.
Simchat Torah in Gaza, exactly. Fair enough. Yeah, that's part. That right. So I'm trying to identify that this war that we're in right now is in fact the war against Judaism, and that our natural reaction would be, we gotta hide our mezuzahs. We're gonna hide our menorahs. Don't be too Jewish in public. Somebody asked me last night, so Rabbi, do you wear a kippah when you go to Europe? Somebody asked that question. Do you wear a kippah when you go to Europe? And I'm like,
I do.
Non-negotiable, man. Non-negotiable. Like, of course, I wear a kippah in Europe. I wear tzitzis. I wear the whole thing because I am who I am, and I'm not allowing myself to be intimidated. I was heartbroken. Somebody showed me a menorah necklace. A lady showed me a necklace she just bought, like a Star of David. But you can pull it apart with a little tug, pull it apart, and it looks like a regular design, or it goes back like a magnet. It goes back.
That's heartbreaking.
And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see that. And I want to just conclude by saying that I think what's going on over here is that it's so easy to lose sight of the true miracle when you put the military victory on the table, right? And that's why these two miracles need to be separated. They need to be put, one in the Talmud, one in the prayer, because one would eclipse over the other. And when we look at it without a proper, when we take the style of today's people's distracted mindset, we only read headlines. There's a war, we won, great, fantastic, it's all that matters, right? We don't realize the depth behind the Hanukkah story. We think of Hanukkah as some sort of a pathetic response to Xmas, to give presents to our kids because we couldn't figure out a way to give presents to our kids, even though Hanukkah comes way, way, way before Xmas was ever even dreamed of.
It's interesting you talk about taking the position down. There was the show Everyone Loves Raymond years ago. Patricia Eaton, who was the female star, Christian woman. She started a movement of putting up mezuzahs at home and recommending it to all of her Christian friends. Well, put a mezuzah up.
Oh, that's beautiful. So our Gentile friends are putting up mezuzahs as well.
We're proud of you.
Wow. That's very beautiful. I love that. So somebody's asking, what do you all want to ultimately do with all the Muslims? There are billions of them, and you're proclaiming people to hate all of them because of the actions of a few. Would you like that same judgment, sir? We are not claiming to hate the Muslims. Absolutely not. We're just saying, just chill out, guys. Live and let live. That's not what we're saying at all. What we are saying is that we will not cower, we will not be intimidated, and we will not be afraid. That's what we're saying. We are saying that when they're trying to take away our light, we will shine our light even stronger. Because the truth, Hanukkah teaches us that the true definition of a Jew is the spirituality, his soul, right? The soul happens to be enclosed inside of a body. And the body needs, in order to do mitzvahs, you need to have a body. You can't do mitzvahs if you don't have money, right? You can't put up a mezuzah if you don't have a house. You can't eat cholent on Shabbos if you don't have meat, and you can't buy meat, right? You can't say l'chaim and Purim if you don't have money for wine, right? You can't serve God if you don't have a shul. So, I mean, you can, but the soul needs the body in order to manifest. But let's not ignore the soul because of the body. The body is the tool, is the means to the ends. It's the superficial surrounding the ultimate. Let's not forget the destination because of the journey, right? But the power of a Jew has the power in order to influence his physicality, his materialism, his mundane parts of his life, that they shouldn't overwhelm his essence, and that all of the fulfillment of his physical needs are in the service of the divine. That is the message of Hanukkah.
Chanukah.
Go ahead.
You finished?
Yeah, I'm finished.